Well, what was built as the Wapato Jail in North Portland officially has a new name. It's the Bybee Lakes Hope Center, a transitional housing facility that will open in September.
In North Portland, Oregon, there is a building that cost taxpayers $58 million and then sat empty for 16 years. It was built as a jail in 2004, yet not one inmate ever spent a single night there. And while those doors stayed locked, thousands of people were sleeping in tents and doorways just a few miles down the road. But in 2020, a man who had spent 25 years homeless himself walked into that empty jail with a very different plan. Today, that same building shelters 318 people at a time. And how that happened might be one of the most unlikely second chances in American history. To understand how a city ends up with the most expensive empty building in Oregon, you have to go back to the 1990s. Crime was a constant worry across the country back then, and voters in Multnomah County, the county that includes Portland, agreed to fund a brand new jail to ease overcrowding. Construction wrapped up in 2004 in the Rivergate industrial area of North Portland, out among the warehouses and shipping yards near the Columbia River. The finished facility, called the Wapato Corrections Facility, covered 155,000 square feet. It had space for 525 beds, an industrial kitchen big enough to feed every one of them, laundry facilities, medical rooms, secure day rooms, and a maze of concrete corridors painted in that unmistakable institutional gray. Everything was wired, plumbed, inspected, and ready. All the county had to do was turn the key. There was even talk of how modern and humane the design was, with natural light and open day rooms instead of the dark cell blocks of older jails. Local officials toured the finished building with pride. And then the ribbon cutting that everyone expected simply never came. And then came the problem nobody had solved. Building a jail is one expense. Running a jail is another one entirely, with guards, food, medical staff, and utilities costing millions of dollars every single year. By the time Wapato was finished, the money to actually operate it did not exist. Budgets had shifted, priorities had changed, and the numbers simply did not work. So officials made a decision that still sounds unbelievable today. They locked the doors of their brand new $58 million jail and walked away. For the next 14 years, Wapato sat frozen in time. According to county records, taxpayers were still paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to maintain an empty building, keeping the pipes from freezing, the alarms armed, and the lights checked in hallways. Nobody walked. Add it all up over the years, and taxpayers spent millions more on a jail that never once did its job. Film and television crews occasionally rented the place, shooting prison scenes inside cell blocks that had never held a real prisoner, which might be the strangest detail of all. The only inmates Wapato ever housed were actors. Around Portland, the building became a running joke and a sore spot at the same time. The jail that never was. Meanwhile, outside those locked doors, Portland's homeless crisis kept getting worse. Tent camps spread along the freeways and sidewalks downtown. Families slept in cars and church parking lots. Seniors on fixed incomes lost apartments they had lived in for decades. On cold January nights, volunteers counted thousands of people sleeping outside across the county, and every winter brought news stories about someone who did not survive it. And year after year, ordinary citizens asked the same obvious question at county meetings and in letters to the newspaper. There is a giant government building sitting empty with beds, a kitchen, hot showers, and a medical clinic. Why on earth can't we use it? Officials had their answers ready. Wapato sat 11 miles from downtown Portland, far from the soup kitchens, clinics, and caseworkers that homeless people rely on. Advocates argued that nobody who committed no crime should be asked to sleep behind the walls of a jail. Renovating the building for civilian use would cost even more money nobody wanted to spend. Some of those concerns were fair. But the arguments went in circles for years, committee after committee, study after study, and while everyone debated, the building just kept sitting there and people kept sleeping outside in the rain. In 2018, Multnomah County finally gave up and sold Wapato for $5 million. less than a tenth of what it cost to build.
Building Wapato was a mistake.
Just imagine selling your house for a tenth of what you paid for it, and you get a sense of how badly this investment had gone for the taxpayers of Multnomah County. A local developer named Marty Kehoe bought it first, and soon the property landed in the hands of Jordan Schnitzer, a well-known Portland real estate developer and philanthropist whose family name is on museums and university buildings across the Northwest. Now, Schnitzer could have leveled the site and built warehouses, and he would have made a fortune doing it. The Rivergate district is prime industrial land. Instead, he announced something almost nobody expected. He wanted to turn the never-used jail into a center to help the homeless. You would think the city would have thanked him. The opposite happened. City leaders, county commissioners, and even some homeless advocacy groups pushed back hard. Wrong location, they said. Wrong kind of building. Wrong approach entirely. Nobody controlling public money wanted to touch the project. For over a year, Schnitzer knocked on doors, made his case, offered his own money, and came away empty-handed again and again. By October of 2019, he was done. He announced publicly that the plan had fallen flat and that the building would probably be demolished within months. After 15 years and $58 million, the wrecking ball was coming, and the whole sorry saga would end as a pile of rubble and a cautionary tale about government waste. However, before the demolition crews ever arrived, Jordan Schnitzer met a man named Alan Evans. And Alan Evans understood locked doors in a way that no politician in Portland ever could. By the age of 13, Alan Evans was homeless and addicted, not for a season and not for one rough year. He would spend roughly 25 years living on the streets, drifting from state to state, sleeping in doorways, in bushes, and under Portland's own Burnside Bridge, the very heart of the city's homeless community. Those are the years most of us spend building careers, raising families, and saving for retirement. Evans spent them surviving one night at a time, learning which doorways stayed dry, which shelters had beds, and which strangers could be trusted. He knew hunger, he knew addiction, and he knew the particular loneliness of being looked through by people walking past, as if he were part of the pavement. He has said something in interviews about those years that stops people cold. Back then, getting arrested actually felt like getting rescued, because jail meant a bed, a hot meal, and a warm room. For a quarter of a century, the only time the system reliably fed and sheltered this man was when it locked him up. And when he finally clawed his way off the streets as a grown man, he carried one hard-earned lesson with him. A roof alone had never been enough. People coming off the streets needed identification documents, addiction treatment, job skills, medical care, and above all, somebody who refused to give up on them. Without those things, he had watched countless friends get housed, stumble, and cycle right back onto the same sidewalk. So, in 2002, in the small coastal town of Seaside, Oregon, Evans founded a nonprofit called Helping Hands Reentry Outreach Centers. It began as one modest shelter on the coast, born from a simple idea. Evans wanted to give other homeless people the one thing he had needed most during his own 25 years outside, a helping hand toward a sustainable life, not just a cot for the night. Over the following years, it grew into 11 facilities spread across 4 Oregon counties, all built around a philosophy Evans sums up in 2 words: compassion and accountability. His shelters offer genuine support, but they also ask something of the people who stay there: sobriety, real effort, and a plan for the future. It is an old-fashioned approach, and plenty of experts in the homelessness field disagree with it. But Evans had lived the problem from the inside for 25 years, and his programs kept producing graduates who stayed housed, stayed sober, and stayed employed. When Schnitzer pitched him on the empty jail, Evans did not see a failed corrections facility. He walked those silent gray corridors and saw dormitories, classrooms, a teaching kitchen, and a garden. He saw the building he wished had existed when he was the one sleeping under the bridge. He later joked with visitors while giving tours of the old cells that he had always wanted to be on the visiting end of that glass, where the county had seen a liability and the critics had seen a symbol of everything wrong. Evans saw 155,000 square feet of solid, structurally sound possibility, sitting there fully built and waiting. After 16 years of no occupancy, engineers found the building in astonishing condition. All those years of maintenance payments had preserved it almost perfectly. The two men struck a deal that sounds made up. Schnitzer would lease the entire facility to Helping Hands for $1 a year for 5 years. $1. Together, they raised more than $4 million in private donations, enough to cover about 2 years of operations without a single cent of city or county funding. In August of 2020, they held a rededication ceremony outside the old jail, and the razor wire that had surrounded the property for 16 years was ceremonially cut down while the crowd applauded. The building received a new name, the Bybee Lakes Hope Center, after the peaceful wetlands and lakes that sit just beyond the property. And in October of 2020, in the middle of a global pandemic, the doors that had stayed locked for 16 years finally opened. The first phase held 126 beds. The barred doors and prisoner pods were gone, replaced with bunks, curtained sleeping areas, warm lighting, and common rooms. For the first time in its existence, the $58 million building had people sleeping inside it, and every single one of them was there by choice, working to rebuild a life. Before I show you what daily life inside Bybee Lakes actually looks like, if stories of second chances like this one matter to you, take a moment and subscribe, because I share a story like this every single week. And one more thing, if someone you love is struggling to keep a roof over their head, or if you are the one struggling, I put together a guide called The Veteran's Blueprint. It walks through the lesser-known housing resources and survival strategies that I simply cannot go into detail about here on YouTube, and it was written especially for veterans and the families trying to help them. You will find the link in the description right below this video. Now, back to Portland. Bybee Lakes is not a typical shelter, and that is exactly the point. You cannot simply walk up to the front door and claim a bed. Residents arrive through referrals from a network of roughly 80 partner organizations, including hospitals, churches, jails, and street outreach programs. Everyone who stays must remain clean and sober. There are rules, there are chores, and there is accountability, the same ingredients Evans believes saved his own life. The program works in stages. New arrivals get their first 30 days simply to decompress with shelter, food, and support, and no demands rushed at them. People can stay up to 60 days at no cost while they stabilize. After that, residents are expected to find work and contribute $250 a month toward their bed, a small fraction of any Portland rent, but enough to rebuild the habit of standing on your own 2 feet. Days at Bybee Lakes have a rhythm to them, with wake-up times, shared meals in the dining hall, house meetings, and lights out, a structure many residents say they had not known for years. Each person also receives an individual re-entry plan built around their own story, along with case management, addiction recovery meetings, mental health counseling, and hands-on job training. And the old jail turned out to be almost perfectly designed for its new mission. The industrial kitchen that was built to feed 525 inmates now doubles as a teaching kitchen, where residents learn food preparation and nutrition skills they can carry straight into restaurant work. Outside, residents have planted a garden with more than 100 trees, turning the grounds of a former corrections facility into something green and alive. There is a theater room for movie nights, and a visiting area where children and grandchildren can come sit with the people they love and watch them getting better. One longtime supporter described watching grown men throw their arms around each other to celebrate months of sobriety in rooms originally designed to hold them as prisoners. The results started showing quickly. Major employers in the surrounding industrial district began hiring directly from Bybee Lakes, including Columbia Sportswear and Amazon. At one point, roughly half of the residents held full-time jobs within a single mile of the facility. Picture that for a second. People who were sleeping in tents a few months earlier now clocking in every morning at warehouses just down the road from their beds, saving money and rebuilding their confidence one paycheck at a time. The pandemic had slowed the original construction plans, and for its first year and a half, Bybee Lakes could only operate at partial capacity, around 126 people. Then, in March of 2022, the center celebrated the completion of a major expansion, funded in part by a $1.2 million donation from the United Way. The newly renovated space nearly doubled capacity, creating enough room for 318 people at a time, with the ability to serve up to 4,700 people per year. And the expansion changed who Bybee Lakes could serve. New dormitories opened for families with children. A dedicated unit welcomed LGBTQ residents. Plans took shape for on-site medical and dental services through a partnership with Oregon Health and Science University, plus a child care center for working parents. By December of 2023, the shelter was housing 171 people on a given night, including 16 children and 40 seniors over the age of 55. Grandmothers and grandfathers who had been sleeping outside in the cold now had a warm bed, 3 meals a day, and a real path forward. But this story almost had a very different ending. Running Bybee Lakes costs about $4.5 million every year, and once the novelty of the famous jail conversion wore off, the private donations began drying up. Through its first 3 years, the center had operated without regular funding from the city or the county, a point of pride for Evans, but also a ticking clock. In August of 2023, Helping Hands was forced to stop accepting new admissions. By September, local news outlets were reporting that the money had nearly run out, and Oregon's largest homeless shelter was just days away from closing its doors for good, which would have sent more than 170 people, children and seniors among them, back toward the very streets they had escaped. What followed was a month of tense negotiations between Evans and Multnomah County, the same county that had built the jail, mothballed it, and sold it off at a loss. In early September of 2023, county commissioners approved an emergency grant of $1.5 million, and a few weeks later, another $1.25 million to keep the center open through the end of the year. It was the first public money the county had ever put into Bybee Lakes, and it came with conditions, including an independent financial review. The tug of war over funding and philosophy continues to this day because the county generally favors low-barrier programs with no sobriety requirements, while Bybee Lakes insists on structure and accountability. Two sincere approaches, pulling in opposite directions, with real lives caught in the middle. But while the officials argue about models and budgets, the numbers speak quietly for themselves. Since opening in October of 2020, Bybee Lakes has served more than 2,200 people. Thousands of men, women, and children have walked through doors that were welded shut to the public for 16 years, and a great many of them walked back out the other side with jobs, sobriety, and homes of their own. So stand back for a moment and look at this whole story from a distance. A city spent $58 million building a place designed to lock people away, and it never locked away a single soul. For 16 years, it stood as a monument to bad planning, quietly draining even more tax money to stay empty, while human beings froze on sidewalks a short drive away. The building was never the problem. The beds were there, the kitchen was there, the showers were there the entire time. What was missing was somebody who understood, somebody who had actually lived on those sidewalks and who believed that people are worth more than the worst chapter of their lives. In the end, it took a developer willing to lose money, a formerly homeless man with a stubborn vision, and $1 a year in rent to accomplish what $58 million of government spending never could. The jail that was built to hold people ended up setting them free. And it leaves you with a question worth sitting with. How many buildings like Wapato are standing empty right now in towns all across America? Closed schools, shuttered motels, abandoned hospital wings, empty office towers, all already paid for, all standing there, all locked. If there is a building like that in your town, tell me about it in the comments below, because your city might be holding the answer to its own crisis without even knowing it. And if this story hit close to home, remember that the Veteran's Blueprint is waiting for you in the description below this video. It covers the housing resources and strategies I could not go into here, for anyone trying to keep a roof overhead or trying to help someone they love do the same. I will see you in the next one.